Hi there, welcome to Long Distance Review. This week I'm looking at the new album from prog metalers, Coheed and Cambria. Now Coheed and Cambria have been around since 1995 and they actually started out with a different name. And they didn't release their debut album until 2002. A little history with Coheed and Cambria then. As I said before, prog metal, they're prog rock. They started out more post-hardcore, I guess. They've got a lot of pop sensibilities about them, but very hooky, very catchy, a lot of their stuff. What you might need to know about them and you don't know is that the name of the band and all their albums are based around a concept called the Amory Wars, or Amory Wars, I'm not too sure how it's pronounced, which is basically a universe created by the lead singer Claudio Sanchez. And he's written comics about them, a full-length novel. There's been rumours about a film, but he's created this massive universe that he's had characters, storylines throughout, and all the albums that Coheed and Cambria have released, bar one, were all to do with the characters and the storylines in the Amory Wars. Real fascinating, interesting project, and it's a massive undertaking, really. And it's an absolute mastermind of a project, really, and I can only applaud Claudio Sanchez on how much he's put into it, really. I'll come back to the concept a little bit later on when I talk about the album. And the actual name of the band, Coheed and Cambria, are the two of the main characters from the Amory Wars storyline. So yeah, that's the basis for the band, really, and the ideas behind the projects they released. In terms of albums, they released their debut album in 2002, entitled Second Stage Turbine Black. And that was followed up in 2003 with In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. And that was in 2003. Those two albums are a bit more, I suppose, post-hardcore, emo, very influenced by sort of At the Drive-In kind of sound. Yeah, still decent, but it wasn't really until they released Good Apollo and Burning Star 4 Volume 1 in 2005 that they put much more prog elements into their sound. This was followed by Good Apollo and Burning Star 4 Volume 2 in 2007. After the Good Apollo projects, they released Year of the Black Rainbow in 2010, then the Afterman projects, which is Afterman Ascension and Afterman Descension in 2012 and 13 respectively. Again, that's a name of I think it's to do with a character in the Amory Wars, the sort of tangents of the storyline that split off that they've done. Like I say, it's worth reading about. Then the first album that they released, which wasn't to do with this concept, was called The Colour Before the Sun, and that was in 2015. I really like The Colour Before the Sun. I think it's a really good album, and I'm sure it must have upset a lot of the real hardcore Coheed and Cambria fans because it had nothing to do with the Amory Wars, but I think it's a really, really good album, and a really good song as well. Really good songs on there, sorry. A lot of big sort of hit singles on there, a lot of big choruses. I love that album. I thought it was really good, very overrated, very underrated, sorry, and overlooked, is what I was trying to say. Yeah, so like I say, after that, they've now returned back to the Amory Wars concept with this album entitled Vaxis Act 1, The Unheavenly Creatures. The members on this album are, as I said before, the lead singer and guitarist is Claudio Sanchez. Travis Stever is on guitars, you've got Zach Cooper on bass, and Josh Eppard on drums. Now, this album came out over a week ago as I'm recording it, and although I haven't got this review up as quick as I'd like, I felt I needed to give this album a lot more time. This album is a long album, there's a lot going on it, and I felt it deserved a lot more listens than, say, a more immediate album, so I feel I've given it the time it deserves. As I said before, a long album. This is over 70 minutes long. You need to give it a good sit down and listen to, put it that way. If you heard the first single off the album, or the first song they released off the album was entitled The Dark Sentencer, which is the first song on the album. Then The Dark Sentencer really sets the tone for this album. If you remember, they do really good opening songs. If you remember Welcome Home on Good Apollo and Burning Star 4, it's that kind of opening track. They're very good at. Very big, very grandiose, huge sounding. And I suppose after the more, let's say, minimalist Colour Before the Sun, they certainly returned to this bigger sounding band. And I suppose The Colour Before the Sun, just to mention that album again, it often gets overlooked, and a bit unfairly, but because it had nothing to do with the concept, it's kind of dismissed as one of those, oh, that was that album, now they're back to doing what they do best. I think Colour Before the Sun's a great album, and it deserves a lot more attention than it gets. Anyway, back to this. Yeah, Dark Sentences, it's a really good song, but it's over 6 minutes long. A lot of prog going on in there, but it's still catchy as hell. And what Coheed and Cambria have always managed to do is, like I said, they've got pop sensibilities. They've always managed to mix these prog epics with these huge, catchy, stadium-sized choruses, and they do it brilliantly on this album. Although this album is very long, I don't feel it feels bloated, because there's no songs on it which aren't. I think every song on here could be a single, pretty much, bar one or two. There's no huge 10-minute epic songs which could have really made the album feel bloated and overblown. But there isn't that on here. Every single song is a 5-6 minute, all big hitters with big choruses. And that's what I've always loved about Coheed and Cambria. I feel like this album's an appeasement between the more radio-friendly songs from Coheed and Cambria, which was probably on The Colour Before the Sun, and the more epic songs like on like the Willing Well and things like that. But there is no song as sort of long as the Willing Will on here, but they are slightly longer and more proggy than the more radio-friendly songs, if you get what I mean. This is like a middle ground. And I think they've trod that really well on this album. They managed to mix more immediate songs like Toys and True Ugly and The Unheavenly Creatures with the slower building songs like Black Sunday and Queen of the Dark. Like I say, this is the longest Coheed and Cambria album they've ever done, but it doesn't feel like the longest. Without naming some of the other albums, which I personally didn't prefer, this one seems a lot more focused than them. There's nothing that really gets away from it and makes it feel too overblown or too up its own arse, for a better phrase. This is much more focused, and every single song has a big stadium-sized chorus. You don't have to be into the concept. I mentioned the concept at the start. I'm not into the concept. I find it fascinating that he's built this whole concept around the band and around the albums, and I think it's incredibly well done. And I'd love to be into it more than I am, but I just haven't got the time, I don't think, to read all the graphic novels and understand all the characters and understand where the albums fit in the timelines. Because the chronological albums don't necessarily relate to the storyline chronologically, if you get what I mean. So it doesn't matter if you're not into the concept, because these are huge, big melodies. There's toe tapping, hand clapping on True Ugly, and there's an insanely catchy song, Pavilion, A Long Way Back. So you don't have to be into the concept to enjoy these songs. These are big rock songs at the end of the day. But I do feel you need to live with the album for a while, live with it for a week. You start to get more into the subtleties that they put into the songs and the nuances. Like the song All on Fire. It's got a real somber piano build at the start, which then breaks into a huge chorus, and then later on in the song the piano comes back in, which you kind of forgot about at the start. And I really like, there's a song called It Walks Among Us, and that's got this really cool double time bass drumming on the chorus, which is aged, which I didn't notice for the first few listens, but then these little subtleties creep in, and I feel like some of these songs deserve a lot more attention than some other albums maybe get. Maybe for some Coheed and Cambria fans, this is missing the big epic prog epics. Like I said before, it hasn't got those 10-minute prog sprawling epic songs. But for me, for my ear, I prefer this side of Coheed and Cambria. I prefer the big choruses, I prefer the big hooks, I prefer the big rock songs, the big stadium-sized songs with skyscraper choruses. It's brilliant for me, and they're insanely catchy at points. The only downside for me on this album, really, is the last song, Lucky Stars, which is a real letdown. It's a real melancholic, somber number, but it just seems way too saccharine and cheesy to finish this album off, which is a real shame, because 14 out of 15 songs are brilliant. So yeah, check it out. I really like this album. I think this is a good album, and I think, and this is part 1 of 5, I think, of this project, the Vaxis project. So this is Vaxis Act 1, The Unheavenly Creatures. There'll be Act 2, 3, 4. So there's a lot more to come from Coheed and Cambria, and I'll be really interested to see where they go on the next ones, whether they go back to the more sprawling epic numbers, or they go back to the punchier numbers like this. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. Always an interesting band though, and a really fascinating project. But great songs. Go check it out. Thanks very much.